Everyone wants to get prepared for birth, especially if you're here watching these videos. But today I want to tell you 3 ways that are the worst ways to prepare for birth, why they're horrible, and what you can do to pivot moving forward, because you can pivot these into great ways to prepare for birth with small actionable changes. And when I started in labor and delivery, the internet was very new. There were no classes online. You had to come to the hospital. And now here we are in 2026, and I swear that birth preparation has become even worse the more convenient that we have ended up making it. I don't know why that is. I would love to know if you guys know why it is. Tell me down in the comments why birth preparation is worse than it's probably ever been since I started in labor and delivery. And while we're here, I'm here to tell you that birth preparation isn't just about a bunch of random tips. It is a step-by-step process that is best done, I know, in a class. I have a class that I recommend. I'm going to link it down below. The worst way to prepare for your upcoming birth is social media. And I'm talking mostly about reels, because as you watch a reel, maybe you guys don't know this, but as a content creator, shorter reels do better. And reels that have a real kick that draw you in do the very best. But usually they don't fulfill in their promise, that they're meant to be real clickbait to get you to watch. And then at the end, you're like, I don't really understand that. So you go over to the comments section, and that is even worse. It's a zoo of information. Guys, social media can be a real minefield of birth preparation. And I think that the majority of people are using social media to get prepared for birth. And it is no big surprise that birth trauma is increasing, because you were just getting these bits and pieces and not getting the full picture. I think that social media can be a nice way to supplement a fully prepared head of birth education. So if you've already taken a birth class and you already know the beginning to the end and you're ready to make choices for yourself, then social media can be a great way to supplement it. And I also think that social media can be a great way to share how you're feeling. I think, that's something that's definitely got better. When I had my first baby, people didn't talk about postpartum depression because it was sort of shameful, but people talk a lot more about it now, and that's great. But you got to remember that sharing how you're feeling is not the same thing as birth preparation, so it's tricky. I also think that social media can be a great way to find people. Like you found me here on YouTube. I'm also available on every single social media platform under the Pregnancy Nurse. Kind of find out if you jive with that person, because back in the day, you signed up for the hospital, and when Karen came out to teach her birth class, you either loved her or you were meh, or you hated her, and you didn't really have any say in the game. But when you sign up for a birth class online now, you can really tell if that's a person that's meant to prepare for you. Of course, that brings us into this fact. So I started really content creating about 2014 because I am old. And I went to a class one time, and in the class she said, if you are willing to write on a topic, then you are an expert on the topic. And I just sat there and blinked, and I was like, that's not true at all. I was a labor and delivery nurse at the time, and that was honestly pretty offensive to me. Just because you were willing to write on a topic didn't mean you knew anything about the topic. And that has just carried into now. If you are willing to make a video about something, you are an expert about it. And that is 100% true on social media. It's hard to tell who really is an expert versus who is not. A couple things you can do is look for initials under their profile name. I'm Hilary Erickson, RN-BSN, which means I have an RN to practice as a nurse. And BSN means I graduated from college in a study of nursing. I have a bachelor's of science in nursing. So I've at least met that basic criteria. Then hopefully they're going to give you some of their experience. Mine is that I've been a labor and delivery nurse for 20 years. And then I teach millions of people online birth education. And you'll hear me referencing studies. And these are all things that can assure you that that person is coming from an area of expertise and experience. Because yes, there are people out there who have doulaed maybe a few births or had children of their own, sometimes just one child, who are speaking as an expert on social media. And you might watch it and think they are just as much as an expert as someone who has a lot of experience. And it's often hard to differentiate the two when you're just scrolling. And honestly, here in 2026, I think we're all starting to realize that maybe the short form video is not giving us what we really want. I'm hearing a lot of my friends who are starting to step away from it and probably coming over for more longer form videos. I'm so glad that you're here with me on YouTube. And side note, one of the things that I see get talked about, the absolute worst, is birth birth plans on social media. And so I actually have a whole free birth plan mini series. I'm going to link it down below because I think it's an important step, but it doesn't mean what people talk about on social media. So check that one out down below. I've seen so many people talking about context and nuance on TikTok. I don't know if it just knows that I'm willing to watch those videos, but oy vey, yeah. You don't get a lot of that in those short videos. And I know that because I film them. I still post on social media a lot because it's part of my business, but yeah. I'm glad that you're here. The next worst way that people prepare for birth is to focus just on the planned stuff. Now, I actually have a whole video on preparing for planned versus unplanned stuff. I'm going to link that video down below. But planned stuff is pain, right? Everybody's probably going to have a bit of pain with labor. This stages of labor. Most people are going to have the stages of labor. Some people talk about the cardinal movements. These are things that most labors have, right? Unless you go in for a scheduled C-section. That's kind of where they end. They just go over that and lots of natural pain management, but they don't go over the unplanned things, which includes inductions, C-sections, forceps, vacuums, episiotomies, and honestly, just postpartum. Like all these things that may end up happening postpartum, knowing where to get help, knowing when things are going wrong. It's so important. I think that knowing the unplanned versus planned starts all the way at third trimester testing, and ends weeks postpartum. So you got to prepare for the unplanned stuff. So I get it. I get wanting to ignore some of the stuff that isn't so fun to go over, but preparing for the unplanned stuff is so important. It doesn't have to take long. And the birth class that I recommend actually goes through all of those different things. And again, I will link it down below. And I'm here to actually remind you that it's not the unexpected that makes birth overwhelming. It's not being prepared for it. Well, so when 5 nurses run in your room, if you expect that, or you know the reasons behind it, it's totally different than if you aren't expecting it and it's a big surprise. And I don't want that for you guys. So I'm glad that you're here. The final worst way that people prepare is alone. They're not involving their partner. Now, it is unlikely that your partner is subscribed to me on social media. I hope that he is. He's welcome. Or here even on YouTube. You may send them information now and then, but again, they're just getting little tidbits. And if you are in your room and 5 people are going to run in the room and it's totally normal and it's expected, but your partner doesn't know, they are going to start to freak out over in the corner. And that freak out is going to start to ooze over to you and you are going to start to freak out. So when you are both prepared, you both know what to expect, it's just so much better. So make sure that you are involving your partner in your birth education. Now, I'm here to tell you that in my birth class, like 90% of what is in the class is somewhere between my 2 websites, all of my social media channels, and the hundreds of videos that I have here on YouTube. But the beauty of a birth class is that it is sequential. You know what to expect. It can be done easily with a partner. In fact, you could watch the video and they could watch the video separately, and then you can come back together and talk about it. It's all there for you and your partner to do together. And you're not going to get any repeats. You're not going to have any ads. That is the beauty of a birth class. So I know a lot of you are like, I don't want to spend the money on it, but ultimately you are going to waste so much less time if you just take the birth class, especially with your partner. What I notice from people who take a birth class is not that all the things that they learn. It's not, how we studied in high school history class, the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria came in over in 1692. I don't think that's even right, but it's more about how prepared and confident they feel together going in as a team. So it's less about the facts, but more about the big picture. That's what you're looking for in labor and delivery preparation. And I just want to say that I'm so glad that you're here, that you're learning some of the bigger picture here on YouTube, because this is better than Reels for sure. So thanks for being here. Thanks for joining me on the Pregnancy Nurse, where we get you prepared, not scared for your upcoming hospital birth. Guys, the hair feels flat today. I don't know. And this zip patch. Does anybody have any thoughts on the zip patch? Could you see it the whole video? I feel like I made it worse. It's fine.